Chapter 796. Everyone with different intentions, going after precious treasures. Pai Shui Han snorted coldly. He was inwardly extremely angered. He was a famous expert. Fang Yuan's loud taunting was something that had not happened to him for a very long time. Pai Shui Han did not want to show a weak demeanor, just as he was about to attack and fight back against Fang Yuan. Fairy Li Shan flew out and exposed her rank 7 aura. Meanwhile, at another side, He Lu Lan did not conceal her activation of multiple immortal goo. This was obviously a situation of the three of them fighting him at once. Pai Shui Han's eyes twitched. He gritted his teeth and stopped his attack. He had no choice but to stop, because right now, there was no one with the strength of unfettered scholar around him. He was alone against many strong foes. Pai Shui Han could not regain the face he lost. As he fought with the desolate beast, he snorted, saying to Fang Yuan, "Didn't you guys run here too? Don't be too arrogant. Do you really think I am a pushover? I am thinking about the big picture. I have greater objectives. I do not want to waste time with a brute like you over small matters. With such huge benefits in front of us, if I waste time in being pestered by you, it would be a huge regret to miss this opportunity." Although the desolate beast was fierce, Pai Shui Han was much stronger. He could speak as he fought, interacting with Fang Yuan and the others. In comparison, Xie Shimin and Half Moon Brutemaster appeared much inferior. Fairy Li Shan laughed. She stood in the air as she said in a hoarse voice, "He is right. Now is indeed not the time to fight among ourselves. Why don't we force them back and take Jade Pool blessed land for ourselves?" Fang Yuan growled unhappily on purpose. He Lu Lan coordinated with him. She immediately rebuked. "There is not enough time. Do you think we haven't considered this? Since we can come here, others are not fools. There will be others coming here soon. Moreover, Dong Fang Chong Fan is a scheming old fox. Why would he not set up defenses around his base camp?" Fairy Li Shan also said, "We'll handle it like that. How many times have I told you? Number 7, you need to control your quick temper." Fairy Li Shan purposely spoke like she was scolding Fang Yuan. He snorted and acted as if he was obeying orders from her. These three had already cooperated many times. They had chemistry in coordinating between themselves. With their current performance, there was no flaw. Pai Shui Han felt even more wary now. Xie Shimin and Half Moon Brutemaster looked at each other, thinking that this situation was troublesome. At the same time, they felt some suspicion and uncertainty. Where did this mysterious force come from? Such a person is only number 7 and not the leader. "Brother Pai, Jade Pool blessed land is so big. It is not something we can take for ourselves alone. Why don't we work together for now? Time is limited. The longer we drag on, the more unexpected problems could occur." Fairy Li Shan said solemnly. Pai Shui Han did not want to fight them. He saw a way out that could save some face for him. On the outside, he showed a reluctant expression as he spoke. "Fine, you can join in too. But we had an agreement earlier. We cannot fight among ourselves. There are certainly many valuable things, so whoever finds them will get to own them. If there is a dispute, you can undergo transactions privately. If that is insufficient, strength will decide the rest." Fang Yuan and He Lu Lan looked at each other, seeing the smile in each other's eyes. What rules were these? This was no different from saying there were no rules. Among demonic path Gu masters, they often lacked trust. Such rules were compatible with the style of the demonic path. There were no restraints at all. Of course, earlier, Pai Shui Han, Xie Shimin, and the others probably had more rules than this. There was probably a part about using cultivation level to decide who gets more resources. Fang Yuan muttered in his thoughts that Pai Shui Han was a rank 7 Gu immortal. He had the greatest battle strength. He naturally had to protect his own interests. But the situation was different now. Fang Yuan's side was even stronger. Pai Shui Han was at a disadvantage. He would not blindly list out such a condition. Xie Shimin and Half Moon Brutemaster were extremely regretful. Why did they attack so quickly? They did not observe the situation clearly. The enslavement path Gu immortal Xie Shimin saw that they were negotiating. He had to take a risk and say, "Would Sir return my 3 desolate birds?" Fang Yuan laughed loudly, saying arrogantly, "These birds may look impressive but are worthless. You can have them back." Saying this, he tossed these 3 desolate beast birds without a second thought, like they were worth nothing. Xie Shimin felt anger inwardly. he was extremely stifled. These 3 desolate beast birds were indeed low in battle strength, but they were easy to raise and control. There was only one beast enslavement immortal goo in the world, but there were many ways other than that to control desolate beasts. Wisdom path, water path, fire path, and others. They all could do so. There were other techniques that Xie Min did not use. Once he did, he could raise the desolate beast bird's battle strength by 50%. But Fang Yuan and the others were too ruthless. If they had fought, he might have done that. However, they went directly to Pai Shui Han to find trouble. They did not even give him a second glance. These 2 demonic path Gu immortals did not know the background of Fang Yuan and the others, but they knew Pai Shui Han's power. Even Pai Shui Han was suppressed, having the disadvantage. Why would they dare to attack? Thus, Xie Min was deterred. He had cowered before even fighting. He did not dare to use his real offensive techniques. He did not reply to Fang Yuan's taunting. He kept quiet as he endured it, not daring to say a word. In truth, Fairy Li Shan was a rank 7 information path Gu immortal with ordinary battle strength. After He Lu Lan lost self-strength, she did not have a true immortal killer move. Her battle strength fell and was around rank 6 middle tier. If Fang Yuan and Pai Shui Han fought, as time passed, he would inevitably fall into a disadvantage. Comparing their collective strengths, Fang Yuan's side was weaker, but in war, destroying the enemy's plan was the best tactic. The second best way was to destroy their connections, then the best after that was attacking their troops, and finally, attacking their cities. Fang Yuan and the others used the best tactic. They won before even fighting. Although the power levels in different worlds were somewhat different, or they could even be very different, but regarding such philosophy, it could be applied everywhere, whichever world it was. The logic of ruining the enemy's plans was an astute move. Only an imbecile would want to fight and kill all day. Anyone who had slight knowledge of politics would know that war was only a method. It was an extension of political strife. And the core of politics was the economy. Economy meant profits. In other words, all fighting was done for the sake of profits. That Tio Fang Yuan, coldness, arrogance, humility, conceit, all of these were masks. They were tools for him to obtain profits. The 2 sides came to an agreement and decided to collaborate. The desolate beasts in Jade Pool Blessed Land were originally at a disadvantage, with no commander. Now that there were new members to the group of demonic path Gu immortals, the beasts quickly lost. Some died, some got injured, and some escaped. Ha ha, let's charge in. Fang Yuan purposely laughed wildly, taking the lead as he flew into a deep part of Jade Pool Blessed Land. From a bird's-eye view in the air, the Blessed Land's huge landmass had pools of all sizes that could be seen all over the place. There were deep pools and small lakes connected with each other, in untold numbers. They were like the stars in the night sky, indescribably beautiful. The terrain of the Blessed Land was somewhat chaotically ordered. It was organized in accordance to being centered upon each jade pool, spreading out in a circular fashion. There were some grasslands, some green trees that formed shade for the pools. There were some pools in mountains, and there were some in swamps. This is a good blessed land. Fang Yuan could not help but praise. Soon after, He Lulan arrived behind him. She did not speak, but her eyes were shining. Fairy Li Shan also arrived soon afterwards. She smiled as she introduced. Each of the jade pools here are unique. They have different types of waters and nurture countless species of creatures, or goo worm groups. Some were used to create a specific environment, to store all their resources. Dong Fangchang Fan had his own unique concept of management. When he was around, he brought in resources from Eastern Sea, growing them in Jade Pool Blessed Land until they bore fruit, which he then sold to Northern Plains Goo Immortals. Be it Righteous Path or Demonic Path, they were all popular goods. Even in Treasure Yellow Heaven, Dongfang tribe's fish groups and aquatic plants were famous. Even though they could not match Eastern Sea's super forces in this aspect, it was quite a unique specialty. Hearing this, He Lulan understood. She was ready to move. This means that in each of these pools, there is a stockpile of resources. Ha! There are so many crystal marrow aquatic plants. It is suitable for my blessed land. I can save a huge amount of expenses now. Not far away, a demonic path Goo Immortal had already taken over a pool as he laughed loudly. We have to split up. If we stay together, others might be suspicious. Fang Yuan transmitted. All right, let's act separately. We can gain more that way. But keep in touch and take care of each other. Not only are we dealing with Pai Shui Han and the others, there might also be Dong Fang Chong fans' traps. I will go first. He Lulan changed her direction and flew away from Fang Yuan and Fairy Li Shan. She flew towards a deep pool below. This child. Fairy Li Shan looked at He Lulan's figure as she sighed, saying to Fang Yuan, I had previously agreed to not attack Dongfang tribe. I cannot touch these resources, but I can skirt around the restrictions. I will investigate this place. If I find a precious resource, I will inform you too. All right. Fang Yuan replied curtly. He suddenly looked towards a deep pool. It was shining brightly, like there was a layer of oil on top. The surface area of the pool's top layer was also larger than the other pools. I am going to. Fang Yuan moved and flew down at lightning speed. Fairy Li Shan flew towards the sky, hiding into the clouds. Far away, Pai Shui Han saw that the three of them had split up. A dark light flashed in his eyes as he snorted coldly, turning towards a jade pool. Fairy Li Shan flew into the clouds so that she could use whole earth goo. She transmitted only to He Lulan secretly. Quick! There are two great treasures in Jade Pool Blessed Land. One is Thatched Hut, the other is Minuscule Mountain. The former is a rank 6 immortal goo house. It can both attack and defend, specializing in storage. The latter is a legendary place recorded, the legends of Renzu. One of the variant humans, the Mini-Man race lives in it. No matter which one we obtain, it will be of huge help to our cultivation in the future. He Lulan immediately responded. I have also heard of these two treasures. But little ant, how did you confirm that these two are in Jade Pool Blessed Land? Fairy Li Shan smiled as she replied. I have cooperated with Dongfang tribe so many times, I know some matters about their internal affairs. Thatched Hut stores most of Dongfang tribe's public wealth. Even Dongfang Chong Fan cannot take them for his personal use inappropriately. As for Minuscule Mountain, despite being small, it is a real mountain. It needs to take in earth chi to stabilize its form. It cannot be brought out easily. Furthermore, Dongfang Chong Fan had the agreement with the righteous path forces created using it, with Minuscule Mountain guarding this place, that would form the greatest restraints on the alliance. Of course, these two treasures could have been moved away secretly, but the possibility of that is small. Regardless, we have to give it a try. There are countless jade pools. Thatched Hut might still be at its former location. Follow my instructions and go there stealthily. Chapter 797. Flick, 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 subduing a shark fin wolf. He Lulan was even more excited, quickly replying, Little ant, rest assured, I am already deep into the pool and am drilling a hole underground. In the air, Fairy Li Shan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. This was the backlash from the alliance agreement. But she could endure this much. She casually wiped away the blood and continued to transmit information to He Lulan secretly. All right, I will scout for you from up here. Move stealthily and make sure other Gu immortals don't discover you. Especially Fang Yuan. He is extremely shrewd and calculating. Even Pai Shui Han is dancing to his tune. We are in the Snowy Mountain Alliance with him, but its time limit is approaching. You need to make sure to be on guard against him. That goes without saying. He Lulan quickly replied. Fang Yuan moved rapidly to above a jade pool, causing gusts of wind that raised waves on the surface of the pool. Fang Yuan had his previous life's memories, and although he did not have investigative immortal goo, his mortal investigative methods were ahead by a generation in comparison to the surrounding goo immortals. He looked around for a while before immediately ascertaining that there was nothing in this pool apart from water, so it is oil water. He frowned slightly as he examined. Oil water was naturally not regular water, but a resource found in the depths of deep seas. It was a goo refinement material and was extremely common in Eastern Sea. In northern plains and western desert, however, it was rather rare. There were almost no transactions of small amounts of oil water in Treasure Yellow Heaven. It was because the profits were too low and the fee of Treasure Yellow Heaven was too high, making the loss more than the gains. When oil water transactions appeared in Treasure Yellow Heaven, they were essentially in very large amounts. But even then it was hard to earn significant profits. Also, because the oil water Eastern Sea produced was basically used by their own cultivators, the frequency of such large transactions was extremely low. Dongfang tribe was not only storing oil water, but also had an ingenious use for it. This pool's water was extremely deep, connecting to deep underground and extracting traces of earth qi. Oil water was basically a resource that was produced in deep water and large trenches. Dongfang tribe set up this pool to use oil water to produce more oil. Water. Once in a while, they will put in clear water, and with the continuous mixing of earth qi and oil water, the oil water in the pool would gradually restore to its original concentration. Fang Yuan was very experienced, and with just a moment of thinking, he was aware of the operation method of Dongfang tribe. Oil water was not easy to extract and required specific goo worms. Fang Yuan's slight frown was because of this. He knew there was a small, specially designated group of goo masters who went to the depths of seas to extract oil water. Goo worm recipes that were handed down from generation to generation were arranged in a set to draw and extract this oil water. These people made a living from this, and their goo worm set were meant to extract oil water. They did not have high battle strength, but their social status were high and they were welcomed by all the forces of Eastern Sea. Fang Yuan had been to Eastern Sea in his previous life and had come across an old oil water extraction specialist. This goo master was rather old, and he only had a granddaughter, to whom he wanted Fang Yuan to wed and also adopt her surname. Unfortunately, Fang Yuan refused in the end. Fang Yuan's eyebrows soon relaxed. He pointed his index finger at the surface of the pool and lightly bent it. Immediately, the pool water rose like a dragon, obediently moving into Fang Yuan's immortal aperture. There would have been nothing Fang Yuan could do if this was before the auction, but after the auction, he had the strength path immortal goo, pulling water. Its effect was specialized for dealing with water. Wasn't this a trivial matter? It is. Just that oil water is precious, but it is not immortal material. Using immortal goo pulling water to collect it is simply overkill, but I plan to attend Central Continent's refinement path convention, and oil water is suitable to be used at earlier stages. Otherwise, I would not have gathered it. Using immortal goo meant spending green grape immortal essence. And the value of green grape immortal essence was much higher than oil watered. If it were not for the refinement path convention, Fang Yuan might have simply ignored it and left. Right now, Fang Yuan was standing in the air with his hands clasped behind his back, the oil water constantly moving towards his immortal aperture. He slightly leaned to the side and looked in He Lulan's direction. There was no news from He Lulan's end. As if she had gone to another pool, a dark gaze flashed past Fang Yuan's eyes. He had some guesses about Fairy Lishan and He Lulan's secret plans, but was not worried. With the advantage of rebirth, how could he not know of Thatched Hut and Minuscule Mountain? In truth, he probably knew of them even more clearly than Fairy Lishan. In the Five Regions Chaotic War, during Fang Yuan's previous life, all sorts of immortal goo houses were brought into fights, creating many large-scale battles. Immortal killer moves could be easily targeted and subdued, but immortal goo houses combined defense and offense, even if they had different specialties. They fundamentally did not have shortcomings on other aspects in particular. The more goo immortals and immortal goo house stored, the stronger their might. It was almost like an unstoppable fortress in the battlefield. Thatched Hut would not be Thatched Hut if it could be easily found. Fang Yuan stored all of the oil water before flying towards another pool. After storing several resources like oil water, Fang Yuan finally came across a pool where a beast group that made his eyes brighten was dwelling. Sensing Fang Yuan's mighty presence encroaching upon their territory, wolf howls resounded. Several tens of thousands of shark fin wolves rushed out. The wolves formed a large wave, glaring fiercely at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan had used shark fin wolves when he had disguised himself as Wolf King Changshanin. They were extremely useful. They had the size of an elephant and could live in both land and water, and were one of the few wolf species that could fight underwater. They had powerful defense. Their bodies were covered with smooth crocodile-like armor, while there were sharp, deep blue fins on the sides. On their backs, there was a row of shark-like fins, which formed a line extending from the wolf's head to its tail. They were not fast, and were often used by Fang Yuan as shields in his wolf formations. Naturally, these mortal beasts were not of much interest to Fang Yuan currently. Fang Yuan's burning gaze was on the leader of the wolf group. This was an enormous shark fin wolf that was over 10 meters tall. With a smooth and graceful build, its physique was a perfect combination of strength and beauty. This shark fin wolf was crouched low, with its dense sharp canines exposed. Its lantern-sized eyes were fixed upon Fang Yuan, as if it was going to pounce at him the very next moment. Fang Yuan laughed heartily, having an intention to subdue it. He did not have beast enslavement immortal goo, but he could somewhat control this level of desolate beast with other methods. There was only one beast enslavement immortal goo, which was in Langya blessed land. This goo showed instantaneous effect when enslaving a desolate beast. The desolate beast could be controlled in accordance with one's thoughts. This allowed a supreme showcase of enslavement path. Fang Yuan did not have beast enslavement immortal goo, and naturally other enslavement path goo immortals also did not have it. However, the use of goo depended on the goo immortal's creativity. There were all sorts of methods and killer moves that could substitute for beast enslavement immortal goo. For instance, flying bear phantom goo was a unique method of phantom path in enslaving a desolate beast. Water path, fire path, light path, and other paths also had their own respective methods. Otherwise, how could Dong Fong Chong Fan control so many phantom beasts in the battle at Taichio? Every path was independent of each other, but yet interlinked with each other. Taking references, interacting, and competing with other paths created the current goo master structure that had all sorts of styles. Even without the enslavement methods, a desolate beast could be raised from youth to nurture emotional connection and intimacy, and could be made to protect oneself or attack enemies. Immortal crane sects He Feng Yang and the Nine Palace Crane, Little Nine, were a classic example of man and beast developing a close relationship. Naturally, these methods absolutely could not compare to the effect of beast enslavement immortal goo. Enslavement path was able to be classified as a path, so its enslavement methods were definitely superior to that of other paths. Fang Yuan and the wolf were locked in a standoff for a while. The desolate beast shark fin wolf was still restraining itself, not daring to recklessly move because it could sense a threat from the aura Fang Yuan gave off. Since that was the case, Fang Yuan took the initiative to attack. Two strength path giant hands pressed down upon the shark fin wolf from the left and right. The desolate beast shark fin wolf howled before taking a slight step back. A layer of glass-like watery armor immediately appeared on its body. The next moment, it fiercely jumped above Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan could detect a foul odor assailing his nostrils from the wolf's open mouth. Following the odor were countless water bullets that were rapidly being shot out of the shark fin wolf's mouth. Fang Yuan did not dodge or evade. As he sent out another two strength path giant hands at the shark fin wolf, the storm of water bullets smashed at the strength path giant hands, but only served to slightly slow them. These water bullets could not even be considered mortal killer moves. Naturally, they would not be able to compare to an immortal killer move at the same time. The previous two strength path giant hands rose up and grabbed the two rear legs of the shark fin wolf before dragging it down. The pitiful shark fin wolf had just jumped to the air, but was dragged down before it could reach Fang Yuan. Boom. The desolate beast shark fin wolf crashed hard at the ground, and some unlucky ordinary shark fin wolves that could not dodge in time were turned to meat paste by their leader. The desolate beast shark fin wolf roared in anger and struggled to get up, to pounce at Fang Yuan again, but the next moment, it saw a strength path giant hand getting closer. The strength path giant hand was powerful, and before it even reached the shark fin wolf, the latter felt difficulty breathing as its heart trembled. The shark fin wolf wanted to dodge, but its rear legs were firmly grasped by two strength path giant hands. It twisted and turned its body but still could not evade. The strength path giant hand fiercely slammed at its face. The shark fin wolf howled miserably. Its head was slammed to the ground so forcefully that it formed a large crater. Only after a few long moments, it was able to barely raise its head from the crater. However, the attack had caused its sight to become blurry, tears and snot flowing down its face that it shook its head, still not giving up on resisting. But the second strength path giant hand slammed it at this moment. The shark fin wolf howled miserably again as another large crater formed on the ground. It felt extreme grief and indignation. The enemy was powerful and also shameless. not giving it any time to react. Fang Yuan sent out another strength path giant hand. A total of 5 flew around, pressing and beating the desolate beast shark fin wolf to the ground. A cloud of dust rose, and the ground cracked. The wolf group beside the desolate beast shark fin wolf darted around everywhere, howling miserably and shooting out water bullets. But the quantity was so large that the bullets collided against each other partway and destroyed each other. Fang Yuan's build was not big, and the number of water bullets that landed on him were very few. They were like light drizzle that could be neglected. What sound is this? Not far away, Half Moon Brute Master gazed over at the commotion. His pupils shrunk when he saw how Fang Yuan was mauling the desolate beast shark fin wolf. He already knew Fang Yuan had rank 7 battle strength, but when he personally saw Fang Yuan leisurely beating up a desolate beast, his heart could not help but tremble intensely. There was simply no suspense, as the desolate beast shark fin wolf did not even have the energy to retaliate. If Fang Yuan only had rank 6 battle strength, maybe it could struggle for some time. But with battle strength of a realm higher, the desolate beast shark fin wolf could only take the beating passively, especially given that the desolate beasts raised in this blessed land carried no immortal goo. Any immortal goo would be taken away by goo immortals. Immortal goo were so precious, how could they let a desolate beast have it? However, even though the shark fin wolf was beaten until it could not even raise its head, its attitude was still stubborn. Fang Yuan snorted, deciding to increase the force. With a shift of his mind, for strength path, giant hands separately grabbed the shark fin wolf's front legs and hind legs, then lifted it into the air. The desolate beast shark fin wolf had been beaten into a horrid sight. Its whole body was spread out in an ungainly way, while its 4 limbs were constantly emitting sounds of fractures from the ruthless grasps of the 4 strength path giant hands. The remaining strength path giant hands started to rain slaps on the shark fin wolf's cheeks. Crack, crack, crack. The wolf's large head swung to the left and right from the repeated slaps of the hand. The wolf group below howled more miserably and loudly. Most of the wolf group had already collapsed, while some at the periphery were already starting to flee. This is truly hanging it up and beating to a pulp. Cold sweat was already seeping out of Half Moon Brute Master's shiny forehead at this sight. Fang Yuan's viciousness and strength terrified him. The desolate beast shark fin wolf was almost pounded into a slurry. Even the sounds of its wails changed. However, it still opened its eyes with difficulty, and its gaze still carried extreme stubbornness and bone-deep hatred. Wolves were beasts that deeply bore grudges. Still not submitting? Fang Yuan also felt somewhat of a headache. Submitting to the strong was a wild beast's survival instinct. According to conventional reasoning, the desolate beast shark fin wolf should have already submitted in front of such a massive difference in strength. Fang Yuan carefully observed and made a discovery. So this shark fin wolf has gone into heat, and this time period is when its alpha male characteristics are at its strongest. No wonder it is stubborn. He suddenly had an eccentric idea. Under Fang Yuan's control, the strength path giant hand changed again. The middle finger of the giant hand bent and touched the thumb from afar. Half Moon Brute Master looked on as this strength path giant hand slowly moved down to between the shark fin wolf's 2 rear legs. Suddenly, the thumb slightly relaxed and the middle finger flicked. It very accurately struck this male wolf's penis. Whoa! The desolate beast shark fin wolf shook fiercely, like it had been electrocuted. Its eyes seemed to be opened until almost falling out as it howled to the sky, its voice filled with boundless pain. Flick, flick, flick. Woo! 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 The shark fin wolf howled in an increasingly loud voice. Half Moon Brute Master watched this with his mouth and eyes wide open. This, he stammered. Unable to say a word, he understood Fang Yuan was trying to force the desolate beast shark fin wolf to submit. But this method was simply unheard of. In that instant, Fang Yuan's image underwent a huge change in Half Moon Brute Master's mind. Fang Yuan's entire body was clothed in a black robe, with his appearance hidden. But outsiders could naturally try to make guesses on his appearance. Half Moon Brute Master had imagined Fang Yuan to have a fierce and cruel appearance, with a burly and thickly built body, his protruding eyes shooting out a fierce gaze that seemed to want to find people to devour. Now, however, this figure underwent a transformation. The image of a robust warrior was no more. The burly build had turned into one with broad shoulders and a thin waist. The gaze was sinister, the teeth were dense and sharp, and there was a trace of perversion. The desolate beast shark Fin Wolf's mental defenses were finally broken, and it fully submitted. The strength path giant hands loosened their grasp, and it collapsed to the ground, motionless. Its enormous, aesthetically beautiful body was now bent like a large shrimp. Its two front claws were grabbing between its two rear legs as it whimpered weakly, like a weak little flower that could be in dire straits from slight wind and rain. Fang Yuan mumbled while chuckling. This is a good method. He then turned to look at the distant half-moon brute master. He had naturally already discovered the latter's stealthy glances. Half-moon brute master could not see Fang Yuan's true appearance, but he felt Fang Yuan's gaze was firm, like a giant snake that was coiling around his body. The dark, cold, and slippery snake scales tightly held on to his warm body. Half-moon brute master shivered as he felt an ominous chill emerging from the depths of his heart. In particular, the region between his legs seemed to feel a bit more cold. This person is exceedingly savage and absolutely not someone I can deal with. I have to avoid him when I see him in the future. Sigh. The world is difficult. Life is not easy. Half-moon brute master swallowed his saliva and rapidly flew away, going as far as to resemble someone fleeing. Chapter 798. Extorting Regretful Spiders. After Fang Yuan subdued the desolate beast shark Fin Wolf, he placed it in his immortal aperture. The shark Fin Wolf's mental defenses had already collapsed, and it had fallen unconscious soon afterwards. Unable to keep its shark Fin Wolf subordinates under control anymore, Fang Yuan could do nothing other than to let these ordinary shark Fin Wolves flee in all directions. He did not feel it was much of a pity. Capturing a desolate beast shark Fin Wolf alive was already a plentiful harvest. He continued to search pools, but he only found common resources, and although the quantities were huge, there was nothing noteworthy. Dongfang tribe's base camp was sure to have many good things. But there were innumerable pools while Fang Yuan's scouting range was not very far. Add in the other competing demonic Pathgu immortals. The amount of resources he could plunder would depend on luck. Not long later, good luck arrived once again for him. He was looking at a deep pool. What this very deep pool accumulated was not water, but fire. The fire was raging wildly inside. This was a special fire pool. Fang Yuan used several investigative methods in succession and discovered a group of python beasts living in this pool. Fang Yuan found out their identities and discovered they were eerie fire dragon pythons. A mature eerie fire dragon python was enormous, reaching close to 100 meters long and with a body as thick as a tower. The eerie fire dragon python had scarlet scales, a sharp horn on its head, and a pair of blood-red eyes. Its tongue was a strange purple, and when it flicked its tongue, one could see an eerie blue fire coiling around its tongue. This was a snake nest, although there was no desolate beast-level eerie fire dragon python inside. The quantity of the normal eerie fire dragon pythons was extremely high. The pythons were piled up on top of each other, squirming and moving around, creating a horrifying spectacle. Fang Yuan, however, felt excitement. All parts of the eerie fire dragon python had value. For instance, its blood was the best food for some blood pathgu worms. Its skin, tendons, and other parts were top-class materials for refining a lot of goo worms. In particular, the eerie fire dragon python's gallbladder was extremely precious, and there was a market for it in Treasure Yellow Heaven. Eerie fire dragon pythons normally live in the form of small families. I wonder what method Dongfang tribe used to make so many eerie fire dragon pythons live together. This method might not be too complicated, but is quite effective and gives an extreme increase to the reproductive rate of eerie fire dragon pythons. Fang Yuan was able to discern some details of the method. Speaking of which, he had obtained a few eerie fire dragon python eggs back at Imperial Court Blessed Land. Now, the eggs had already successfully hatched. The young eerie fire dragon pythons were living in Immortal Blessed Land. But Fang Yuan had been neglecting them as their quantity was extremely few. If he could obtain this large group of eerie fire dragon pythons and raise them into Immortal Blessed Land, he would have a continuous supply of eerie fire dragon python gallbladders in the future, which could be sold in Treasure Yellow Heaven and be a small source of income. Though Fang Yuan was involved in the large business of guts goo, but a quick calculation told him the profits from selling eerie fire dragon python gallbladders was also somewhat lucrative. Taking action was better than thinking. Fang Yuan immediately grabbed with his strength path giant hands. He could not control his strength properly, squeezing many eerie fire dragon pythons to death. After all, changes in this move's form specialized in forceful grabbing, and were rather lacking in the aspect of fine control. He grabbed dozens, but there were still many eerie fire dragon python in the pool. He gradually started to become impatient. He lacked effective methods to gather the pythons, thus could only act rashly. However, he had limited time now. Fang Yuan grabbed a large portion in the end, reaching up to a number of 10,000 before he resolutely stopped and left this fire pool. He continued to plunder resources as he traveled, and occasionally saw many mortal goo masters. Some of these goo masters were fleeing in panic along the areas between the pools, while some concealed themselves, hiding under the ground, under boulders, and so on. As Fang Yuan grandly soared away, these goo masters regained their senses from the horror. Some hiding. Goo masters were still thinking they were able to hide, but were actually already discovered by Fang Yuan. It was just that he had no intention to attack them. When Pai Shui Han and the others attacked the Blessed Land, they had created a huge commotion which had already startled the Dongfang tribe members in Jade Pool Blessed Land. In the 5 regions, the vast majority of mortals would not have a chance to come across goo immortals in their entire lives. In comparison to this enormous population, the number of goo immortals was extremely few, only a fraction of a fraction. At the same time, goo immortals also were concerned with their own survival pressures, busy handling such matters day in and day out, generally without the time to make themselves carefree and at leisure. In regards to most people, goo immortals were simply vague figures of legend. But the mortals in Jade Pool Blessed Land were Dongfang tribe's core. They knew many inside details. Thus, they were even more aware of the difference between immortal and mortals, the gap that was like a chasm between heaven and earth. They did not think of putting up any meaningless resistance and ran for their lives, while urgently contacting the goo immortals of Dongfang tribe. This was undoubtedly a wise move. Fang Yuan and these demonic path goo immortals were people who heavily prioritized benefits and were disinclined to attack these mortals. Thus, these mortals were actually more fortunate than the desolate beasts. They were able to survive during this disaster. Fang Yuan flew past pools after pools. As time passed, he started to feel increasing urgency and started abandoning some common resources. These resources were not precious and were readily available. At the same time, Fang Yuan maintained his vigilance in accordance with Dongfang Changfan's far-sighted nature. It was impossible for him to not make some arrangements in Jade Pool Blessed Land. As he gradually flew into the distance, Fang Yuan suddenly saw deep pools without any water. These pools were completely dried up. There were a lot of them, about 50 to 60, closely connected, and covering a range in tens of li. Fang Yuan was inwardly moved as he took a sharp turn, rapidly approaching these pools. I discovered these pools first. The regretful spiders inside are mine. Aren't you a bit too greedy? You have already gathered so many regretful spiders, and the regretful spiders here have bred over such a huge range, and you want to take it all for yourself. As Fang Yuan flew closer, he discovered 2 demonic path goo immortals at the edge of a pool, arguing about who the pool should belong to. The atmosphere was tense and serious. When they saw Fang Yuan fly over, the 2 goo immortals paled and quickly stopped their argument, instead standing side by side. Senior, please excuse us, but the regretful spiders here were discovered by us brothers. According to the rules, one goo immortal started speaking with a nervous and vigilant expression. I've heard some news saying there was a pool to the northwest where many large groups of air bubble fish are living inside. Several goo immortals were fighting to get it. The other goo immortal attempted to redirect this disaster. Fang Yuan laughed sinisterly. Do you mean that I should leave? The moment he finished speaking, 2 strength path giant hands flew out and hovered on either side of him. A stance that showed he was eager to make some trouble. The 2 demonic path goo immortals paled upon seeing this. While inwardly complaining incessantly at their misfortune, they had personally seen Fang Yuan's might not long ago. Even Pai Shui Han was not able to gain the upper hand. Moreover, these 2 were only at the bottom tier of rank 6. The consequences would be extremely bad if a conflict occurred with a powerful expert like Fang Yuan. But the resources around them were truly at a large scale. As the saying goes, humans die for wealth and birds die for food. One demonic path goo immortal finally summoned up courage. Senior, we discovered these resources first. This is an indisputable fact. When you set the rules with Lord Pai Shui Han, we were also present. Our demonic path has always been about running and rampaging freely. What rules? Talking about rules for everything. Why don't you just join the righteous path? What's more, what status do you have? Only Pai Shui Han has the qualifications to speak about some rules with me. Fang Yuan had a fierce demeanor. The two strength path giant hands continued to slowly advance as he openly flaunted his prowess. The two demonic path Gu immortals no longer dared to speak, but were still reluctant to leave. The other demonic path Gu immortal seemed to have firmed his resolve, as he suddenly spoke. Senior, these regretful spiders have great use to me, and I had been searching for them painstakingly. How about I use information of equal value in exchange for them? What information? Fang Yuan stopped moving the strength path giant hands. This information concerns Minuscule Mountain. The demonic path Gu immortal spoke directly. Minuscule Mountain, ha ha ha. Fang Yuan raised his head and laughed heartily before speaking in a threatening tone. Good. I will exchange it with you, but I really hope your information is true, otherwise. True, it is definitely true. I came from that direction, but with my cultivation, I am unable to break through, thus I retreated. But to Senior, it would be like it was simply meant for you. As he said this, the demonic path Gu immortal secretly transmitted information containing the precise details to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's eyes squinted to a crack as he heard the information, and said leisurely, Good. I will keep this information in mind for now, but whether it is true still needs to be checked. Hand over the regretful spiders you've just gathered. Senior, you. The demonic path Gu immortal's eyes widened, his face flushed red with anger. Fang Yuan smiled malevolently, speaking as if this was how things should be. How do I know whether your information is true or false? What if it is false? These regretful spiders are a guarantee. Don't worry, I only want this much. You can take the rest. Senior, you are asking for 20% of the total regretful spiders. The demonic path Gu immortal gritted his teeth in anger, but did not dare to fight. The other demonic path Gu immortal was standing at the side. Laughing inwardly, he would definitely work together with the extorted demonic path Gu immortal and resist Fang Yuan if Fang Yuan asked for the regretful spiders in the pool. But what Fang Yuan wanted was the portion that had already been gathered, which was a different matter. The group of regretful spiders stored in the immortal aperture were like crops that had been harvested. It was difficult to return them, and they belonged to the Gu immortal themselves. The spectating demonic path Gu immortal's benefits were not encroached by Fang Yuan, and was thus feeling pleasure at the other Gu immortal's misfortune. The extorted demonic path Gu immortal felt his heart sinking and turning cold when the Gu immortal beside him showed no signs of moving. How painful was it to hand over the crops that had already been harvested? All right, hand them over quickly. I still need to hurry along. Time is pressing. Fang Yuan impatiently urged. Senior, if you renege on your promise, then wouldn't I be? The extorted demonic path Gu immortal squeezed out words from clenched teeth. What? Do you actually think I am such a shameless person? I am your senior. Why would I cheat you juniors? Fang Yuan replied with an extremely displeased tone, and at the same time, sent out another two strength path giant hands. Chapter 799. Knowing when to retreat and advance, a true champion. A total of 4 strength path giant hands hovered in the air. The 2 demonic path Gu immortals involuntarily stepped back. The mental pressure Fang Yuan gave them was too huge. They were the weaker party. What else could they do? The extorted demonic path Gu immortal's expression kept fluctuating before finally turning into one of subservience as he handed over the regretful spiders he gathered to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan did not linger around after he received them, and quickly left. The 2 demonic path Gu immortals immediately let out breaths of relief. The extorted Gu immortal showed an indignant look as he cursed while gazing at the gradually receding figure of Fang Yuan. Old demon, I hope you die there. Stop shouting. How can you be sure he doesn't have methods to hear us? Be careful of him coming back to find trouble with us. The other demonic path Gu immortal quickly attempted to stop the extorted Gu immortal. The 2 glanced at each other. Both were stupefied for a moment before they suddenly reacted, creating some distance between each other. The next moment, an intense competition started. The 2 used all their strength and silently plundered the regretful spiders in the pool, Minuscule Mountain, Captivating Sea. Fang Yuan rapidly approached the location in the information. He had originally not planned to gather regretful spiders, because he lacked methods to gather them. Regretful spiders were not of great value to him, and he had already planned to let them go. Who would have thought that with some extortion, he could not only save time in obtaining a large batch of regretful spiders immediately, but also obtain important information? Fang Yuan pondered and felt this information was rather reliable. Miniman was a type of variant human. Minuscule Mountain was the paradise of many men. It was their foundation. This was recorded in the legends of Renzu. Many men usually were the size of a finger and had thin and transparent wings behind them. They survived on nectar from flowers or sap from vegetation. Every variant human had a special ability that was stronger than humans. For instance, hairy men were proficient in goo refinement, rock men lived underground, skilled in mining, and all sorts of ores grew on their body. Snowmen were cold-resistant. Ing men had rich knowledge. Many men were proficient in growing plants and trees. In the areas they lived in, vegetation was extremely lush, and flowers bloomed throughout the year. More importantly, Minuscule Mountain might be small, but it is a genuine mountain and needs large amounts of earth chi to stabilize its mountainous form. It is an extremely huge burden to put such a legendary mountain within one's immortal aperture. You immortals cannot casually take them. Moreover, this minuscule mountain is not the private possession of any Gu immortal of Dongfang tribe. A Gu immortal's immortal aperture, hidden in their body, had limited amounts of heaven and earth chi. If minuscule mountain was placed for a long time in such an immortal aperture, a lot of earth chi would be absorbed to maintain this legendary mountain, causing an imbalance in heaven and earth chi within the immortal aperture. Thus, minuscule mountain was placed in Jade Pool blessed land most of the time. The reason? It was because Jade Pool blessed land was placed on the ground outside in northern plains. It would constantly absorb the endless heaven and earth chi of the outside world, so there was no need to fear the burden of minuscule mountain. Fang Yuan's Dang Hun Mountain was also in a similar situation. Dang Hun Mountain needed to absorb earth chi. Otherwise, it would collapse. Fortunately, Hu Immortal Blessed Land was placed on Tian Ti Mountain from where it constantly absorbed heaven and earth chi. Thus, there was no need to fear the consumption of Dang Hun Mountain. If it was placed in Fairy Li Shan or He Lu Land's immortal apertures, if they moved around for a long time, they would not be able to bear the consumption even if they were rank 8 Gu Immortals, and would need to place their immortal apertures in the outside world to absorb heaven and earth chi, and stabilize their immortal aperture world. Next to a seemingly ordinary deep pool, Fang Yuan. Why is he here? Fairy Li Shan and He Lu Lan, who were concealed, detected Fang Yuan's presence. Both of them had secretly agreed to look for Thatched Hut. Thatched Hut was no longer at its original position, but the two still had a great harvest. At that location, they found a group of underworld eels. Afterwards, they looked around everywhere and finally found traces of minuscule mountain. However, when they arrived at this place, they were obstructed and thereby in a dilemma. The two were discussing what to do when Fang Yuan appeared in their detection range. Fairy Li Shan still had some hope as she said to He Lu Lan, Fang Yuan does not have strong investigative methods. Our concealment methods are immortal killer moves. As long as we don't show ourselves, he certainly won't be able to detect us. Maybe he is only passing by. He Lu Lan had suffered great losses from Fang Yuan, frowning as she had a bad premonition. Sigh, we absolutely cannot underestimate this guy. Sure enough, the next moment, Fang Yuan slowly landed from the air and quickly neared them. His target was the pool they were in. Fairy Li Shan's expression sank as her wishful thinking did not materialize. Fang Yuan had arrived at the place provided in the information. This deep pool in front of him looked extremely ordinary and unremarkable, but Fang Yuan still had some expectations. According to that demonic Pathgu Immortal's words, this was an illusory land. Inside were illusory peach trees which could add up to be of similar strength to desolate beasts, and could create illusions to protect themselves. A Gu Immortal could only infer some clues when they walked inside. Fang Yuan raised his defenses, and was just about to step in when two figures suddenly appeared not far away. Fang Yuan, wait a moment. Fairy Li Shan transmitted her voice. He Lu Lan stood silently at the side. Oh, it's you too. Fang Yuan's eyes flashed, as he spoke with a slight smile. His tone carried a touch of ridicule. As an ally, they had not informed him of such a huge clue. Clearly they had thought of hogging the benefits for themselves. In the end, he came across them unintentionally. He Lu Lan was a formidable person and spoke with no awkwardness or embarrassment. Fang Yuan, you came at the right time. We were just worrying over how to break into this place. Fairy Li Shan was a veteran Gu Immortal and was also unabashed, continuing, right? This place is called Captivating Sea and is a restricted region of Jade Pool Blessed Land. It mainly consists of a forest of illusory peach trees. There are many peach trees, and the illusion is extremely powerful. Under the trees are a sea of grasses and flowers. The large patches of ground mat grass are like endless green carpets. The sea of colorful flowers gives off a deep fragrance, and tens of thousands of poisonous purple heart flowers are close to blooming. Fang Yuan's gaze slightly focused. That demonic Pathgu immortal had malicious intentions. He had only said that there were illusory peach trees but did not mention their numbers. As for ground mat grass and purple poisonous heart flowers, he did not even bring them up. Ground mat grass was ordinary, but with such numbers, there was bound to be ground mat grass goo. This wood Pathgu only had one effect, which was to instantly send living beings into sleep. Poisonous purple heart flowers often created a poison heart goo. This goo was formless and colorless, and gave a wisp of fragrance that could make one feel drunk, but corroded their heart. However, these were only minor inconveniences as far as Fang Yuan was concerned. Fang Yuan did not cultivate poison path and also did not have strength path methods that could defend against poison, but he had an immortal zombie body, which was extremely resistant to poison. He also had a poison path immortal goo, woman's heart. Fairy Li Shan saw Fang Yuan was listening carefully but completely indifferent, and continued, "The things I have mentioned might be in high numbers, but they are only small problems to us goo immortals. In fact, a group of peach wolves dwell in the illusory peach tree forest, with numbers close to 30. Moreover, this captivating sea is actually a goo formation, and in the depths of it lies Minuscule Mountain. Minuscule Mountain has goo immortals guarding it. Their auras are uncertain, and the numbers are also not clear." Fang Yuan's expression changed. Peach wolves were a desolate beast, comparable to rank 6 goo immortals. A group of peach wolves was like a group of goo immortals in strength. Minuscule Mountain was the home of many men. The goo immortals in it were probably many-man goo immortals, and regardless of how many there were, even one would be troublesome to deal with. Desolate beasts had low wisdom, but variant human goo immortals had wisdom that could reach a similar level to human goo immortals. Having wisdom and lacking it were two completely different levels of threats. Fang Yuan suddenly realized why these two were hiding at the periphery. He sized the two up again, and with his experience, he immediately discovered signs of bitter fights on Fairy Li Shan and He Lu Lan's bodies, although they had tried to treat them as much as possible. Fairy Li Shan is a wood Pathgu immortal. There is no doubt that Minuscule Mountain and many men are extremely attractive to her. In an environment like Captivating Sea, Fairy Li Shan's battle strength should surpass her normal state. They broke through to the depths of the Sea of Flowers, but were still forced back. Captivating Sea's defense greatly surpasses what were my most hopeful estimations. Fang Yuan did not speak, but his shrewd mind was thinking rapidly and inferring many facts from their behaviors. Fang Yuan, if you move alone, your gains will be extremely low. We took advantage of the other party's carelessness and quietly sneaked in through the gaps in the Peach Wolf group. Now that Minuscule Mountain has been alerted, the defenses are sure to be tight. As long as we cooperate sincerely, we might be able to swallow this juicy meat. He Lu Lan persuaded. Fairy Li Shan also added, "Fang Yuan, I know you have the strength path immortal goo, pulling mountain. We can cooperate, but I must have Minuscule Mountain. You don't need to worry, though. I will be sure to give you a satisfying reward." Fang Yuan did not immediately reply, instead lowering his head to think it over. Several breaths of time later, he slowly shook his head and broke the silence, smiling bitterly. "Under this juicy meat is a very hard bone. Minuscule Mountain is excellent, but time is limited. I don't want to spend it all here. I advise you to dispel unrealistic thoughts. There are still many resources outside which are much easier to take. Why make an unnecessary risk?" "What? Fang Yuan, you are actually thinking of backing out?" Fairy Li Shan could not believe her ears. He Lu Lan frowned, persuading. "Fang Yuan, we have discovered Minuscule Mountain. It could be said to be a rare chance. If you miss this opportunity, you might regret it later on." Fang Yuan's stance was firm. The defense is tight. The key thing is that there are goo immortals guarding it, as well as a group of peach wolves. Even if all the demonic path goo immortals in this blessed land gather together, it would take time to break through this place. Would Dongfang Chongfan give us this time? Even if Dongfang Chongfan is hindered, what about the other demonic path goo immortals? Fairy Li Shan took a step forward. "Fang Yuan, I admit that what you say is reasonable, but this is Minuscule Mountain we are talking of. Its value might even be higher than the rest of Jade Pool Blessed Land." "Ha ha ha, Fairy, you don't need to persuade me. I will take my leave." Fang Yuan laughed loudly before flying away directly. The two fairies still did not dare to believe what they were seeing and were even hesitating. Fang Yuan should not be messing around and deceiving us in order to wait for an opportune moment to meddle in and get benefits cheaply, right? That's not possible. We have formed the Snowy Mountain Alliance. He has to either remain silent or speak the truth. For a moment, as they gazed at Fang Yuan's figure receding into the horizon, the two women had strange expressions. Chapter 800. Three Fish Groups, Great Harvest. Plop. The desolate beast dragonfish crashed into the water, creating a huge wave that was several meters tall. Fang Yuan was cloaked in a black robe. He had his face hidden as he stood in the air. There were 6 strength path giant hands circling around his body. The desolate beast dragonfish screamed, entering the water, and did not want to fight Fang Yuan anymore. It swam into the deeper parts of the water. Fang Yuan laughed heartily. Do you think that by hiding underwater, I can do nothing too? You? Immortal goo pulling water. Fang Yuan's body shuddered. He stretched out his left and right hands as he slowly grabbed at the deep pool that was as wide as a lake. From afar, a formless power held up the lake water. It was as if a thick cloth under the water was being pulled up. Thick columns of flowing water had countless ordinary dragonfish in them as they poured into Fang Yuan's immortal aperture. After Fang Yuan said goodbye to Heilu Lan and Fairy Li Shan, he did not spend much time before he found this deep pool. This deep pool was the one with the most water that he had seen so far. It was like a large lake. Dongfang tribe had specially created it and raised 900,000 dragonfish inside it. Among them was a desolate beast dragonfish. Fang Yuan was in an eager mood. He went ahead and took them for himself. The desolate beast dragonfish went ahead and fought him. In the end, Fang Yuan used several strength path giant hands and easily defeated it. Even though the dragonfish had dragon in its name, it was very mediocre in fighting. Moreover, this dragonfish may have been a desolate beast, but it had no immortal goo. It was almost at the bottom tier of desolate beasts. But the meat of the dragonfish was a food ingredient with a wide range of applications. Not only could wild beasts and variant humans eat them, they could also be used as supplementary ingredients and fed to goo worms. In Treasure Yellow Heaven, the business of dragonfish meat had long since been flourishing. Each transaction was a huge sum of profits. So many dragonfish, this pool of dragonfish was probably accumulated over 100 years by Dongfang tribe. But now, this is all mine, ha ha ha. Fang Yuan felt joyful. He continued to activate pulling water immortal goo without pausing. Thankfully, he had pulling water immortal goo. Otherwise, he would have no way to collect such a valuable and huge amount of resources. Boom boom boom. Far away, the fighting of goo immortals could be heard. Fang Yuan collected the dragonfish as he looked around. His gaze was deep as he thought. It seems that over at Heilu Land's side, they are starting to attack Captivating Sea already. He did not regret the decision to give up on Minuscule Mountain. In this world, things were easier said than done. Theories were easy to understand, but when it came to execution, how many people could succeed? Thus, in front of huge profits, it was hard to decide what to give up and what to pursue. Especially when Minuscule Mountain had huge value to Fairy Li Shan personally. Although Fairy Li Shan's vital goo was Mountain Pledge goo, and she was an information path goo immortal, when she fought, most of her methods were wood path techniques. Since she also cultivated wood path, her immortal aperture probably mostly involved growing flowers and plants as her revenue. Had recorded the details, it made Minuscule Mountain even more attractive. But how could it be so easy to take away Minuscule Mountain? It was simply too difficult. There was little hope. Since that demonic path goo immortal gave this information to Fang Yuan so easily, he was likely to also tell others. Or perhaps, there were already goo immortals who knew long ago. Attacking the restricted area, Captivating Sea, would create a huge commotion. How could they hide it from people like Pai Shui Han? Even though more people meant a greater force to strike with. The demonic path goo immortals handled matters individually. Fang Yuan was well aware of their natures. Earlier, during the battle at Taichio, if not for the demonic path goo immortals fighting among themselves, how could Dongfang Changfan have succeeded in his possession so easily? Thus, there was essentially very little hope in obtaining Minuscule Mountain. Did Fairy Li Shan and Heilu Lan not know that the chances were slim? It was because this profit was too huge. The goo immortals were extremely moved. Even if there was just a trace of hope, they would desperately latch onto it. A loud dragon roar interrupted Fang Yuan's thoughts. The huge dragonfish jumped out of the water. Its eyes were blood red as it charged towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan had expected this. He slammed down with 4 strength path giant hands. The method in which he was extracting the deep pool water was extremely efficient. He just needed a small amount of time to drain the pool dry. Thus, the dragonfish was already a cornered animal. If it did not attack now, it would be too late. But facing Fang Yuan, who had rank 7 battle strength. The dragonfish's final struggle quickly met with a huge setback. It ended up heavily injured. More than 10 breaths of time later, the heavily injured desolate beast dragonfish was sent into Fang Yuan's immortal aperture using the strength path giant hands. After spending some more effort, this huge and deep pool was nearly dried out. All of the dragonfish inside were collected into his aperture. In order to take these dragonfish, he spent a total of 4 green grape immortal essences beads, but Fang Yuan had great joy in his eyes. Ever since he entered Jade Pool Blessed Land, he obtained the oil water, desolate beast shark fin wolf, eerie fire dragon python, some ordinary resources, and a batch of regretful spiders. In terms of value, this newly obtained dragonfish group was at the top. It was more valuable than the desolate beast, shark fin wolf, which was second place by a small margin. This batch of dragonfish was too large. There was almost 1 million of them. With such a deep foundation, as long as he spent some effort in nurturing them, it would be a source of endless revenue. Over on Heilu Land's end, intense battles were still ongoing. Fang Yuan did not turn around. He flew towards an area even further away. Not long after, he stopped in his tracks and was overjoyed to see the dense forest below him. The forest spanned an enormous range. At the center of the forest, there was a pool of water that covered an area of the size of a house. The entire forest was planted for the sake of this pool. Or more accurately speaking, it was because this pool was raising a group of peculiar fish, literature carps. Literature carps and true martial carps are known as the literature and martial twin carps. To think that in Dongfang tribe, they had over 10 literature carps. Fang Yuan quickly went down with great excitement. Literature carps were very hard to catch. They were low in numbers. Even in Eastern Sea, they were very uncommon. Literature carps usually remain still in water, moving along with the flow of water. Once they moved their tails and swam slowly, their entire bodies would turn into text chi. Even Gu immortals, without specific methods, could not capture them. They could only watch in vain. When Fang Yuan came here, the literature carps were alarmed. They turned into text chi as they moved around, pervading the water. Fang Yuan's lips curled into a confident smile. His pulling water immortal Gu could control the flow of water. As long as the literature carps did not leave the pool, to him, they were as good as caught. But when he was about to make his move, a demonic path Gu immortal appeared, rising into the air. Senior, please wait. This resource point has already been occupied by me. This demonic path Gu immortal was thin. He smiled as he said that. He was only rank 6, but he had no fear when facing Fang Yuan. Who are you? Fang Yuan's expression did not change. This junior is Zhou Ping. The demonic path Gu immortal cupped his fists. Fang Yuan laughed sinisterly, threatening. Junior Zhou Ping, you have guts, daring to get in my way. With your cultivation level, you are not fit to talk about rules with me. The demonic path Gu immortal, Zhou Ping, instead smiled. No, I am naturally unable to defeat Senior. But I have some insights in flying. I have 2 immortal killer moves. Even Unfettered Scholar, Pei Qing, and Fairy Lu Yao cannot catch me. If Senior wants the literature carps, you can trade with me. Otherwise, even though I cannot defeat Senior, I can destroy this pool in an instant. Fang Yuan was silent. His eyes shined with a ruthless light as he observed Zhou Ping. Zhou Ping was unmoved. He was calm and composed due to his trump card. This was the advantage of a Gu immortal skilled in movement. They are often in a situation where they cannot lose. They can talk to opponents with higher cultivation level or battle strength with ease. Even though Fang Yuan had the killer move Myriad Self, he was lacking in the aspect of movement. Even with Iron Crown Eagle Strength Immortal Gu, together with True Solid Bat Wings, that was not an immortal killer move. It was inferior to Zhou Ping's methods. Very good, Zhou Ping, I will remember you. I wish you well in constantly guarding this place, and to not fall into my hands from now on. Fang Yuan left behind a threat as he left. Zhou Ping heard this and his smile disappeared. He changed his tone. Senior, is this necessary? This junior only wants a transaction. My request is not much either. But Fang Yuan did not listen to Zhou Ping. His body was like lightning as he quickly traveled elsewhere. Zhou Ping frowned. He felt a little distraught. Pointlessly offending a strong and mysterious Gu immortal, he felt very uneasy. Most importantly, Fang Yuan's words were attacking Zhou Ping's weakness. He could not stay here forever to look after the literature carps. Damn it, I do not have a method to collect this group of literature carps. Zhou Ping looked at the deep pool as he stamped his foot, extremely downcast. Fang Yuan left Zhou Ping behind and flew rapidly towards his next destination. After flying a huge distance, he landed, looking at the deep pool below him. He had a joyous expression. This deep pool was neither large nor small. There was a fish group inside. This type of fish was similar to goldfish. It had a round belly, a small pointed head, and a tail. However, it was not brightly colored like goldfish and was mostly milky white. It also did not have a wavy tail and fins. Its tail was small and exquisite. When the fish moved, they did not go left, right, forwards or backwards. They only floated upwards and downwards. They resembled balloons moving in the water. This type of fish was something Fang Yuan had raised before. It was air bubble fish. But because Fang Yuan ran into difficulties and was lacking in funds, he had to sell the air bubble fish group that he was raising for a while to get the funds he desperately needed. Air bubble fish could eat ordinary worms, insects, grubs, and so on, digesting a portion of them while storing the rest as reserves in their stomach. These life forms in the stomach were nourished and had an increased chance to become a goo. Thus, air bubble fish could increase the production of goo worms. During the 5 regions chaotic war, it was a heavily sought-after good among goo immortals. This air bubble fish group has quite a large size. In terms of the price and treasure yellow heaven, it is half of the desolate beast shark finwolf. Fang Yuan inspected. When he saw that there was no goo immortal like Zhou Ping appearing, he immediately made his move and used pulling water immortal goo to take all of the air bubble fish. This air bubble fish group was the 3rd in value among Fang Yuan's profits. "You band of thieves! Brazenly robbing my Dongfang tribe's headquarters." At this time, Dongfang Chang fans' furious screams could be heard over the entirety of Jade Pool blessed land. Unfettered Scholar burst out and shouted, immediately screaming, "Old thief Dongfang, get ready to lose your dog life."